Shalom, Kol Haloyim, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rachak Wadash, and Shan Yakubad, Kadawala Requab, Zaquanyam Nawa, Wa Shalayakim Nawa. That's double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, Shalawam, Wa Barakim, Labakanyam, Shaliyasharala. That's peace and blessings to the elect of Israel. I wanted to make a video really quickly concerning Rahab the harlot and her story, because you have a lot of Christians, especially I've been seeing it within the past few weeks. They've been running to Rahab the harlot to use her as an example in their mind or from their belief to say that all nations have been granted salvation, and all the Gentiles, everybody, no matter who you are, you've now been open to receiving salvation. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. When you read this story, it doesn't allude to salvation being granted to all nations. There isn't a deeper metaphor, no analogy, nowhere. Rahab the harlot herself is not symbolic of every single nation on the entire planet Earth. So to use that is definitely far-fetched, and what I want to do is run through a little bit of Joshua, the second chapter, just so we can talk about her story. But then also I wanted to just speak briefly on what is salvation, what does it mean to be saved, and even why do the Israelites need salvation. So first things first, actually, before we even read Joshua, the second chapter, let's just talk about what salvation is. Now, you can run to the book of Jeremiah, or you can go to the New Testament and you can read Hebrews chapter 8. This is salvation right here. This is the manifestation of what salvation brings. It's the new covenant, which represents the laws being written in our inward parts. As we're going to read, this is only for the nation of Israel. Hebrews 8 verse 8. I'm going to start there. For finding fault with them, the Israelites, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. So a new covenant with the Israelites, period. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. Not all nations, only with the house of Israel. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God or a power, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For all the Israelites shall know me, from the least to the greatest. So this is the end-all be-all to salvation. Now let me grab one more precept, just so we can understand what it means to be saved as well. And now we will go to the Old Testament. One in the New Testament, one in the Old Testament. Let's get a good one. Ezekiel. I'd like to go here. 37. And 24, it says, And David my servant shall be king over them. This is talking about the kingdom of heaven. And they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. That's the new covenant that we just read. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt. And they shall dwell therein, even they and their children, and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen, the other nations, shall know that I, the Lord Yahweh is his name, do sanctify Israel when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. Now, the other aspect of salvation is actually being delivered from this upcoming destruction that's coming to the world, specifically America, which the Bible calls Babylon the Great. Once that deliverance happens, it's only for the elect out of the nation of Israel. Then that's when everything that I just read through the Spirit comes into play, or begins to be, will manifest. That new covenant, us being put in our own land, right? The heathen seeing how the Lord is sanctifying Israel with Yahweh being in our presence, right? He actually is in us. He dwells within us. This was never promised to all nations. So first and foremost, we have to understand what salvation is, as we just read. Secondly, or we do that by going to the prophecies, which I just read one right here in the Old Testament. This is a prophecy to come. Now we can jump back over to the book of Joshua, and very quickly, what I'm going to do, because I'll probably just read a few verses here and there in Joshua, the 2nd chapter, is I'll just give a quick summary of Rahab's story. So basically, Joshua sent out 2 spies within the nation of Israel to go inside of Jericho, where Rahab lived, and to spy out the military camp, basically, of Jericho, where they're situated, how many men they have, what their movements are looking like, so on and so forth. So these spies go into Jericho. They eventually run into Rahab the harlot. Now, the king of Jericho, he got word about these 2 spies in his city, so he sent his men to search out these spies. The agreement happened between Rahab the harlot and these 2 spies, where she said, look, we heard about your power, Yahweh, and the miraculous things that he's done for you and your nation. And so she feared that. She feared the Heavenly Father. And so what she did was she made an oath, a covenant with those 2 spies. And they both said, look, Rahab goes, if I tell you where to hide, and if I don't rat on you, all I'm looking for is for you guys to grant us protection when you overthrow this city. The 2 spies agreed to it. They said yay, and Rahab told them to go flee in the mountains. And then they said, when we come and overthrow Jericho, basically put this red rope, whatever, we'll call it a rope. Put this red rope down throughout your window, and that's how we'll know to grant you and your household protection. Boom. That's the story right there. That's the story. Rahab did not rat them out, and we overthrew Jericho, and Rahab the harlot and her entire household was saved. They were protected, right? So what I want to do is, since I just summed up everything, I will read, I'm going to go down here, the promise to Rahab, and I'm going to start reading at 22. I'll read the last 3 verses. It says, and they went and came unto the mountain, the 2 spies, and abode there 3 days, just like Rahab told them to, until the pursuers were returned. And the pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but found them not. Now, Rahab could have easily just been like, yeah, I told them to go in the mountain, so that's where they are. But she didn't rat on them. So the 2 men returned and descended from the mountain and passed over and came to Joshua the son of Nun and told him all things that befell them. And they said unto Joshua, truly the Lord hath delivered into our hands all the land, for even all the inhabitants of the country do faint because of us. So they just knew it, that Yahweh was going to deliver Jericho into their hands. Now, when you type in Rahab and you go to Joshua chapter 6, you read verse 25, and it says, and Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and her father's household, and all that she had, and she dwelleth in Israel even until this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. That's the end all be all to the story. Now, once again, Christians are running here and saying, oh, well, this is an example of salvation being opened up to all nations. No, the story of Rahab is an example of faith. All you have to do, once again, is go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. Obviously, I cannot type H-A-B. Now, when you just search Rahab and you search the New Testament, she pops up in two places. First, we'll read James 2, verse 25. 25 and 26. It says, or 24, ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. So you're justified by your faith and your works. Likewise, verse 25 says, also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way? For as a body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Rahab's story is an example of faith, and it's something that we can look to and say, hey, we should aspire to have the same kind of faith. That's the end all be all right there. Nothing more. It's not an analogy alluding to Rahab as an example for all Gentiles. Like Rahab represents every single Gentile, every single nation out there, and boom, salvation has been granted. No, it didn't talk about the new covenant being opened up to Rahab and all the other nations. It didn't talk about how Rahab was going to come and receive deliverance in the end days from nuclear destruction and all other Gentiles that believe. No, it doesn't work like that. Rahab the harlot's story was an example of faith, and her faith was justified by her actions. She hid those two spies that Joshua sent out, and she didn't rat on them when they hid in the mountains for 3 days. Hid them in her house and then told them to go to the mountains. Gave them a safe place to hide. Now, also, Hebrews, the 11th chapter, and I think it's around verse 11, or what was it? Let me see. All right, I'll just type it in again. Rahab. It's verse 31. Now remember, this entire chapter is about faith. 11 verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now it goes on to give all the examples of faith in the scriptures. And of course, verse 31, I have it highlighted, talks about Rahab. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believe not, when she had received the spies with peace. Rahab's story is an example of faith, along with the many, 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 many other stories of faith, to where we can read and look at it as an example to say, hey, I need to show my faith also by my works. If I say I believe, then I need to show it by putting in some type of action to back it up. That's it. That's all it is. Nothing more. You know, it's funny, just like how you have these Christians and they see the word Greek in the New Testament, and they somehow in their mind, they associate the word Greek with all nations. But they don't stop and take a deep breath and just think and say, hey, you know what? Why does it say Greek? Why doesn't it say anything else? Out of all these other nationalities out here and all these different races of people, why does it say Greek? What's the importance behind the word Greek? Instead of thinking like that, they just use Greek to justify all nations somehow being saved. Once again, that is the furthest thing from the truth. That Greek right there receiving salvation is an Israelite that's in the Greek state of mind. It's an Israelite foreigner that grew up in the Greekish fashion, or I'll say the customs of the other nations. That's all, but I'm not going to dive too far into that. I do pray and hope that the point concerning Rahab was made. Try to make it as quickly as possible by just giving that summary of her story instead of just reading the entire thing. But pray that it was edifying to the elect out of the nation of Israel, that is, called Halayim, which means all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rachak. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.